Good afternoon and welcome. It is 2 o'clock, so we are going to kick off this edition of the Rittenhouse Open Online Course, or ROOC, Takeaways from the Charleston Conference 2019. The theme of the meeting, as you can see from our slides, the time has come to talk of many things, and many things were discussed in Charleston last week. So, bear with me. There we go, a little technical glitch. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Meg White. I am the product manager for the R2 Digital Library here at Rittenhouse. And I am joined by Nicole Gallo, our Executive Director of Sales and Marketing, who's also running tech support for me today. So thank you, Nicole. Just a couple housekeeping items before we begin. This session is being recorded and will be made available on the Rittenhouse YouTube channel. So if you're taking notes and you're scribbling furiously, don't worry, you can always go back and rewatch or re-listen. Audio is muted for participants just to eliminate any background noise, but we do encourage and invite your participation. So if you have a question or a comment, please submit your questions using the GoToWebinar question tool on your dashboard. And we're conscious of your time today. We like to keep these ROOCs within a half an hour, but we will try to reserve some time at the end for Q&A, but a lot to cover this afternoon. So with that, I'll jump in. For those of you who are not familiar with the Charleston Conference or didn't attend, it's just a primer on what is the Charleston Conference. This is a unique gathering of stakeholders who create, distribute, manage, and disseminate scholarly information. And that's a lot of stakeholders, and if you'll notice, that specifically covers the real A to Z of scholarly communication, all the way from the researcher, through the publisher, through the vendor, through the library, and back to the researcher again. So it really is stakeholders from all of those groups gathering in one place. Held annually in its namesake city, the conference is 39 years young this year. So next year will be a milestone year, 40 years of the Charleston Conference. I will say, from small acorns grow mighty oaks. There were close to 3,000 attendees this year. This meeting started 39 years ago with a group of folks in a conference room at the College of Charleston. So certainly speaks to the conference and sort of the fundamental DNA of the conference, which the hallmark is really encouraged exchange between all attendees. Sometimes irreverent, sometimes controversial, but always striving to be collaborative, but very interactive and not your traditional conference. A lot of conversations going on here, both within sessions and out of sessions. So that really is the hallmark of the conference. I should mention too, started as an academic conference, so you're probably wondering, you know, Rittenhouse is a health sciences company, what are you doing there? And there is a strong contingent of academic librarians who service health sciences programs, specifically nursing and some of the allied health fields. There are many hospital librarians who actually attend Charleston, and there are also medical librarians who attend Charleston. And we'll talk a little bit about some sessions. This year was a big year for health sciences at Charleston. There were lots of topics and themes that were very, very germane to sort of our subset of the whole ecosystem. So going through the agenda, I tried to tease out some key themes at the conference this year, which is no small task. The opportunities for concurrent user sessions through plenary sessions, through keynote addresses, there's a lot going on at this meeting, and it's a busy 3 days. But tying together some themes, definitely open access and new funding models. And the thing about open access that really came out of this meeting, and I'm specifically putting on this slide, new funding models, lots of sessions discuss open access does not necessarily mean it's free. Certainly the article or book is available for free, but there are different models that are actually funding to make that particular piece of information available. So a lot of panels discussing new funding models and how to fund open access, everything from grantors to author paid to read and publish models. So tons of discussion going around what is funding open access. Secondly, consolidation and its impact. And I think, you know, for certainly the large corporations in our industry, we're certainly used to seeing mergers and acquisitions. We're not immune, you know, from what's going on in pharmaceuticals or banking or finance. You know, the publishers in our industry, the commercial publishers, are certainly part of that. But there were discussions within the sessions of consolidation at other points in the industry. Certainly some of the professional societies that are involved in research and academia, and then also the changing demographics in the academic market itself in terms of students. And we're starting to see some smaller academic institutions face financial challenges, and what is the logical outcome of that? And we're seeing maybe some of these smaller schools banding together, doing new kinds of partnerships, even merging to address those changes that are coming just basically due to the changing demographics, the decrease in students that are college age. And then finally, I had to put this in here in quotes, transformational change. I was talking with some folks outside the session, and we were kind of giggling about everything at this meeting is transformational. So if there was a buzzword this year at Charleston, it was definitely transformational. And you're seeing this word pop up a lot, certainly in talking about read and publish agreements. Most recently, the University of North Carolina, you know, it was a transformational kind of model, moving from a subscription-based to a read and publish-based agreement. But I think, you know, you saw throughout the conference lots of stakeholders thinking about change in the context of transforming their core competency, transforming their role, and what that's going to look like, whether that is, you know, a library figuring out what their role is in an open access environment, a publisher wondering how they're going to further serve and extend the products that they offer to researchers. Across the board, I think a lot of the stakeholders there, and you heard it in the sessions, definitely are thinking about, given all of the changes that are going on in our ecosystem, as it transforms, what is my role? So I do think, you know, sort of poking fun at everything's transforming, but I do think that's an appropriate term, and I think that those are challenging questions for sure. So transformational change, the buzzword. I have to say this, bombs were dropped at Charleston. Big news was announced from the podium. There are 3 major keynote speakers that we're going to talk about in a moment, two of whom made significant announcements from the podium of changes, products, services. So let's jump down and look at the 3 big names and 2 of the 3 with their big announcements. The first was Brewster Kahle, who you may know his name. He is a friend of Charleston. If you've attended in the past, he has spoken in there in the past. But Brewster Kahle created Alexa, which he then sold to Amazon. So he self-described that he won the Internet lottery, and now he is the president of the Internet Archive. So he took the stage and described a project that the Internet Archive undertook to identify and correct broken reference links in Wikipedia. They went in and, using artificial intelligence and specific search algorithms, identified 10 million broken links in Wikipedia and automatically updated them with links that were valid back to content in the Internet Archive. Now, no matter how you feel about Wikipedia, this is a pretty cool project, just in terms of its ability to correctly link users with valid information just by fixing those reference hyperlinks. It's pretty cool. Brewster announced from the stage, and through this process, they worked with Better World Books. So coming out of here, the folks at Better World Books and the folks at the Internet Archive imagined what they could do if those 2 organizations worked together. And Brewster announced that Internet Archive has purchased Better World Books and will launch a project to build a product called Better World Library. And this new collaboration has as its goal to add millions, that's his words, of books to the Internet Archive, and not only to add them to the archive, to build that data in such a way that that information will be able to connect to Wikipedia and other third parties. So talking about a large-scale digitization project, but at the same time doing it in such a way so that this information can actually be discovered and used. So that was a very significant announcement, and certainly Brewster has a track record of success. So look for Better World Library coming soon to a desktop near you. Second speaker, so that was the first bomb. The second bomb was from Dr. Patty Brennan, who is the director of the National Library of Medicine. Dr. Brennan announced a significant change in the way PubMed returns search results. And many of you are users every day of PubMed, and you know that search results are arranged by the most recent citation. But PubMed is undertaking a project to use semantic metadata and artificial intelligence to display results according to relevancy. This all grew out of a project that they did, a study that they did that showed, and this is an internet phenomenon, but PubMed is not immune from it. Users would run their search and then fail to move off that initial search results page. So if a user wanted an article that was a little older, might be more relevant to them, but it happened to be older, it might appear the third page, the fourth page, they were never seeing it. So this is the National Library of Medicine's PubMed's attempt to navigate users to things that are most relevant to them and not necessarily only defined by, the recent, the pub date of the articles, the most recent articles. So this change is live on PubMed now. You may have noticed it. Dr. Brennan specifically talked about the NLM soliciting feedback. So if you have comments, this is not a shy group. Please do. They're actively taking comments. It is going to be a change, and both of those options are currently available on PubMed. So that was a very significant announcement, and certainly a large undertaking by the NLM. Also significantly, Dr. Brennan announced plans for the NLM to begin to index preprint servers. And the NLM, while details are still shaking out, has several targeted pilots with partners in development. This is very significant in that it really formally acknowledges the growing importance of preprints in the scientific and research literature. So you will begin to see lots of details still forthcoming, but preprint articles actually indexed in PubMed. So second bomb. Now, our third keynote speaker was Kumsal Bayazit, who for the last 9 months has been the president of Elsevier. She has worked for quite some time with RELX, the parent company of Elsevier, but has been in her current role as CEO for 9 months. She gave a very impassioned address that described how Elsevier sees the current and future landscape of research information. And she specifically called for building of bridges and a reestablishment of trust between libraries and Elsevier in order to reach shared goals. Interestingly, she acknowledged that while content is still king, she expects the future of research information to look more like legal information, and specifically referenced her background at RELX's Lexis product for attorneys, tools, services, and analytics taking center stage on top of that content. So very interesting address, and she certainly did not shy away from addressing some of the animosity, perhaps, between not only Elsevier, but the publishing community and the library community. And she really does see a future that holds a lot of collaboration. So I mentioned that this year was a big year for health sciences librarians at Charleston. There is a specialty group at Charleston of health sciences librarians that meets at the annual Health Sciences Lively Lunch. And this year, that gathering was down the rabbit hole we go again, and it was the 19th such gathering. This year we had great attendance, 60 attendees, and it's worth noting that this group was really convened by Ramuna Kabilias from Northwestern. She every year makes sure that this event comes off without a hitch, and she usually kicks us off as tradition with her year in review. So making announcements specific to the health sciences librarian community of big developments that occurred since we had all been together the year before. And then typically there will be speakers that share experiences or case studies from their library. So this year we had 3 great and very diverse presentations. You can see them noted here on the slide, but Susan Kendall from Eastern Michigan discussed collection development trends. Jean Gudanis from MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina, talked about, this is an interesting problem, supporting the needs of a growing hospital system. So many major medical academics, those medical academic centers are now acquiring community-based hospitals. And Jean talked about the phenomenon of her bosses, trying to explain to her bosses that you can't just add 6 community hospitals to the up-to-date license because the up-to-date people are going to have something to say about that. So that was a very interesting talk, and that trend towards those growing hospital networks is one that is on the increase. So I think that was very helpful to the audience to hear about her experiences in navigating that process. And then finally, Sarah McClung from the University of California, San Francisco. Certainly, this was one of our themes of the meeting across all subject-specific groups, but Sarah specifically spoke about planning and preparing for an open access landscape. So again, this session was taped, and you're going to be able to watch all 3 of these speakers, but for health sciences folks, I think that those are 3 very timely topics, and encourage you to, when the link is live, take a look at that. And finally, just as the slide says, excellent year for health sciences at Charleston between Dr. Brennan, I think certainly Kumsal Bayazit from Elsevier, very, very important in terms of their content to our users and health sciences libraries, and then certainly Dr. Brennan from the NLM. So that was the health sciences Bible lunch. That wasn't enough. All of this is going to be posted online, but there were literally more than 200 concurrent user sessions. There were Neapolitan sessions, which is an interesting Charleston sort of construct. They are similar to plenary addresses, but they're smaller. So they're very, very interactive, probably 300 or 400 people in the room, and they generally tend to get very lively. So industry thought leaders this year in a session on copyright, there was actually a copyright attorney who rapped because he painted some of the copyright issues that are facing scholarly publishing, made an analogy to the music industry and some of the copyright law that's being created there and how it applies. So futurists, publishers, vendors, librarians, these Neapolitans are very lively, very interactive, and just a lot to do. In terms of timing, first week in November, great time to, lots of folks are looking at the coming budget year, doing their planning, handling renewals. There is a vendor showcase that kicks off the meeting. There were more than 100 publishers and vendors in attendance this year, and very, very busy. And I think just due to timing, it's always a great time to touch base with your vendors and make sure that everything is lined up for the coming year. So there is a vendor showcase as part of the conference, and that took place this year as well. As we said, I'm not going to detail all 200 concurrent user sessions, but they're all videotaped, and we'll send those links. But when you look at the sheer number of sessions, how do you organize that? And your librarians, you like to make sure everything's neat in its place and organized. The agenda is divided into common threads or themes. So as you can see on the slide, analytics, collection development, library services, any of these themes that are important to you and important to your library that you'd like to hear more about, every single session is categorized according to its subject heading, and it's put in the right thread. So you can tell this is a meeting by librarians for librarians, everything nice, neatly organized. So once these links are available, you can absolutely plot and look through, browse according to subject area and area of interest, the sessions that may be the most valuable to you. So it's not going to be an undifferentiated mess. It's a mess of topics and themes. It's organized, it's done by librarians, and you can pick according to your level of interest. I mentioned the plenary session videos are now available. I'll call your attention to the handout on your dashboard. We do have a handout with these links embedded, so you can click right on them and go and take a look. They're all about an hour in length, and I would encourage you, if you can, please watch them all the way through, because the questions, the Q&A is included, and if you haven't been to Charleston before, once you watch the questions at one of these sessions, you will understand what I mean by it's really no holds barred. It's all very polite and very mild manner, and I wouldn't say mild manner, but a polite discourse, but folks are encouraged to speak their minds, and disagreements are not uncommon, and it's always very interesting to sort of hear that in person. Okay, that's going to wrap up my comments, or our comments on the meeting. Tried to give you a good flavor for the conference this year. As I said, it was, it continues to grow. It's very big. But more interestingly, I think were the big announcements that came from the stage this year, and the prominence of health sciences within the agenda. You know, of course, I have a bias toward that, but I think with the continuing emphasis, not only on clinical medicine, but on research, I think that these topics and the things that are discussed at Charleston are going to continue to be applicable to health sciences and research librarians. So I don't even know how we're doing on time.
We still have about 9 minutes.
9 minutes, perfect. Okay. So Nicole, do we have a question?
We do. And use your toolbar to submit any questions that you might have. But we have had a few come in. The first, which I'll just read, was a comment about the relevance ranking in PubMed, that it's actually called Best Match, and that it is available in the sort menu. So when you're on PubMed, if you hit that sort menu, just select Best Match, and your results will be sorted by relevance. So Best Matches will be at the top.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was a great comment. Another question here from the audience for you, Meg. Can you explain read and publish and how it is different?
Wow, yes, I can. So a read and publish agreement, in theory, keeps a publisher from double dipping within a specific institution. In other words, an author would publish a journal will publish in a journal, and the library would be paying for that journal, and also the author would be paying perhaps a publisher paid charge to publish that article. So this really introduces libraries into an environment where research that's done locally and is available open access, they're not paying for that same material in a journal subscription. The easiest example, and the most recent that I can point to, very significant, is the agreement between the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and Sage. So trying to disambiguate through these agreements articles that you have to pay a subscription to access and articles that are open access and shouldn't be lumped into that subscription, if that makes sense.
Great. Okay.
So, but I would definitely, if you Google or you go look up the recent announcements from the University of North Carolina and Sage, and those of you familiar with the negotiations between Elsevier and the California Digital Library that broke down, this was the core issue, was what that read and publish deal looked like between Elsevier and the California Digital Library, and how much it was actually going to cost.
Okay, another question here. Can you explain what you mean by preprint servers?
So, yes, and preprint servers have been around quite some time, probably more popular in the hard sciences than in the soft sciences, so I'm thinking specifically of physics. But they were places where prior to the final peer-reviewed version of an article appearing, authors would publish their research findings on a preprint server and make them available for other researchers within their discipline for any number of reasons. They wanted folks to be able to duplicate their data models. They had some groundbreaking findings that they knew would be important to the field, and they wanted to make them available as soon as possible. Any number of reasons. So Dr. Brennan was very clear that there are probably more questions than answers around this at the current time, and there were some very pointed questions from the audience on this topic, specifically because potentially talking about introducing non-final peer-reviewed information into the scholarly literature. So I would encourage you to watch that. Dr. Brennan made a particularly interesting comment, and I so appreciated it. It's a fascinating concept when you think about it. She specifically referred to science as being self-correcting, which I thought was very, very interesting. So hopefully maybe that quote from Dr. Brennan will pique your interest, and you'll take a look at that, at her address, but then also the question on the preprint server. So that's what we're talking about in terms of preprint servers. More popular in the hard sciences, but increasingly popular in the soft science, clinical science. Is that it? Anything else from the floor? Any comments? I'm assuming most of the folks on the line were not able to attend the conference, and that's why you joined us today. But I don't know, I'd be curious real quickly if anyone did attend, if there's anything else you'd like to add to the discussion maybe. Things that you thought were interesting, groundbreaking, controversial. No? Okay, well then hopefully this was helpful for those of you that were not able to attend. We're passing along in your handout the plenary links, and in the future, if you'd like to take a look at the schedule and then look at the corresponding videotape of the sessions, they're being gradually added to the Charleston Conference website. So great week, certainly a big week of announcements, and health science is a significant portion of the agenda. So we thank you for your time this afternoon. Actually, 1 minute early. And have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.